What's up, everyone? Dan here, Crypto Capital Venture, November 23rd, 2018. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. In this video, we are going to look at Bitcoin charts a little bit, maybe even take a little quick glance at Litecoin. And I'm not even going to waste time. I'm going to jump right into it. So I don't know if you were on the live stream the other day or not, but we did a little video and we talked about the seasonality, the cycles of Bitcoin. And we really broke it down really simply into three areas, three cycles, or three parts of the cycle. One is a halving, two is all-time high, and three is correction. This, based on the historical data we have for Bitcoin, this is the path that Bitcoin has taken, right? So I want to apply that moving forward using that data, not as a prediction, but as something to keenly be aware of, something to use in our anticipations. So as you see, that happened, from 2012's halving, to that all-time high in 2013, a year later, to the correction that we entered into that bear market. So that's that cycle. And then we had the halving, July 2016, a year later, all-time highs again, a year later, 2017 all-time high. And now, same thing, leading into that third part of the cycle, the correction. So very similar in terms of Bitcoin and what it's doing. So if you zoom out on the charts, there really is nothing to be concerned about. The thing to be concerned of is if you bought all-time highs and if you're itching to get your money back. Really, that's pretty much the only thing. If you're an investor, if you're long in Litecoin or Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency, then this just requires patience, in my opinion. Obviously, anything can happen. Investments are risky. This whole video is not financial advice, but I just want to throw that out there. So that's what we're looking at. So speaking of cycles, and speaking of where can we go next, we have something on the screen, which is really this $5,500 area to like $3,500. This box that I have, it's a box. It's a lower level range that I've been talking about for months for Bitcoin. It's kind of my area that I'm thinking will be the bottom, somewhere in there. So on my videos, I've talked about this as a heavy accumulation area. I want to throw something out there, which is, this is my comfort zone, right? So I'm always accumulating, but this is like my heavy accumulation comfort zone. But I want to say that I'm well aware that we could go under $3,500. It could go below that range. And so we can take some data from even the last bear market, right? And we can look at, well, in that last bear market that we had, when it did actually capitulate and we reached the first bottom, what was that? What did the overextension look like? We really use overextension from the 200 EMA on the daily chart for Bitcoin. It's really been a very accurate and consistent data point. So we continually use that. So in terms of speaking to a bear market, right around 60% overextended in that capitulation area on Bitcoin from the 200 EMA. So we want to see, well, what would that look like on today's chart? And I'll try and zoom in a little because I know we're really zoomed out. And actually, I think I have another chart open. So here we go. What would a 60% overextension from the 200 EMA look like on Bitcoin? And you can see the 200 EMA making kind of an aggressive looking move down, at least the beginning of it. So 60% overextension brings us right around to $2,600. So if you go back to that chart we were just on, you see that's outside of my bottom range. So I'm well aware that we can get a similar aggressive 60% overextension from the 200 EMA. I don't think we'll get more than that. I really don't. I don't think we're going to go under $3,500, but I'm well aware that we can. So this is what it would look like. Interestingly enough, I will throw this out there in terms of charting, in terms of technical analysis. This downward wedge, this long-term wedge that we've been watching for Bitcoin with these lower lows and lower highs, this is the actual target for the breakouts, whether on the downside or the upside. Obviously, we got to break through the downside. And so here is our target. It actually does bring us right to the 60% overextension on the 200 EMA. It's something interesting to look at, something interesting to look out for. And you can see that overextension, 60% overextension, and that target price for the breakout of that wedge right around $2,600. Am I sitting here saying $2,600 is the bottom, or am I sitting here saying we're going to $2,600? No, I'm sitting here saying I have no idea. But what I am saying is I am completely ready for that scenario. And that is the key to technical analysis. It's definitely being ready for things. At this point, there is, in my opinion, a greater chance that we go to $2,600 before we get a break up, right, through this entire wedge, and we hit $10,000. There's a better chance that we go to $2,600. So you can imagine what that does to my risk tolerance on the upside versus the downside. You can imagine what that does to my accumulation areas, knowing, or at least thinking in my own mind from my own analysis, that there's a better chance that we hit this area before we hit this area. So, namely, I'm saying I have fiat ready for this scenario. So we can go over to the 4-hour chart just to kind of take a quick little glance of, what's forming right now. Because if you look at the daily, we're kind of in no man's land. And one thing I am looking out for on the daily is this. It's the same thing we always look out for when we get a crucial, important break out of a pattern. So this break was the bottom of this long-term wedge. We got this break. So what I'm looking for now is simply a revisit to the bottom of this wedge. So I'm looking for a revisit to this trend line. And right now that's not that far away. We're talking $4,700 for Bitcoin. That would mean from where it's trading right now, around an 8% gain to test that area. But it's definitely something I'm looking out for. We always look out to retest crucial trend lines, whether it's on the upside or the downside, resistance or support. So in this case, we would look for a resistance at this upper trend line. If we get a bounce off of here, if we retest it, then we are certainly looking to hit new lows, and it's something to be ready for. But what's that look like on the 4-hour? So here's the 4-hour. That's the same chart. And if we kind of bring this down a little bit, you can see 4-hour charts. This is the trend line that we're just talking about revisiting. Here's the 47.21 area, right? So it doesn't look that far away, especially on the 4-hour. This can happen, in a matter of minutes type of thing. So it's something I'll be looking out for going into this weekend. In terms of pattern on the 4-hour, I don't know. For me, it's a little too early to kind of start watching anything. If anything, I possibly see, which can bring us to this trend line, right? This is a possible pattern forming, which is kind of like this inverse head and shoulders forming, right? So right now we'd be forming the head as we speak, possible resistance in this little area, and then a possible right shoulder forming, and then finally a bounce to really test this. For a confirmed or inverse head and shoulders on this 4-hour chart, if something like this were to play out, we might possibly get a break above this trend line. So if we got a break above this trend line, going back to the daily chart, if we got a break above the trend line, right? If this reverse head and shoulder plays out, gets us momentum, we get back above here, that could be an interesting video. It could be an interesting time for us to really be watching Bitcoin, because that would really confirm a false breakout of this falling wedge that we see on the screen. I think we're far away from that happening, but at the same time, it really could happen. And then we would start talking about this bottom trend line on Bitcoin as support once again. So it's kind of what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. Wanted to just kind of go over to Litecoin, and really you see my bottom range for Litecoin has been that actually it's 40 on here down to 25, but my bottom range that I've been talking about for a while now was actually around $30 to $50. I thought the bottom for Bitcoin would be somewhere in there. As you know, we've pretty much touched $30, so I don't have much space left in terms of my Litecoin bottom. However, everybody probably knows, if you're watching my videos, Litecoin's another one that I've been accumulating. And in terms of Bitcoin, that 60% overextension, to really get an idea of what that would look like. So if Bitcoin hit that 60% overextension on the downside to $2,600, that would be another 30, let's call it 38% on the downside. So for Litecoin, from where it's trading at right now, if Bitcoin were to go there, for Litecoin, we would be looking at, if we were looking at a 38 on the downside, we're looking at around a $20 Litecoin for the bottom. And we all know sometimes Litecoin gets even a little more volatile than Bitcoin. So we could be sub $20 for Litecoin if Bitcoin decides it's going to go in that direction. So really crazy, really interesting things going on right now. You might be wondering why, my Litecoin price on the screen is $33. That is just simply because I'm not using Coinbase. I'm using Bitfinex charts. So it allows me to go back further on the charts for these videos. And it's also reliable. They have a lot of volume. So that's kind of my technical analysis video. Wanted to kind of also go over this real quick if you're still here, if you're still watching. Bitcoin Futures Exchange Backed is open to adding altcoin contracts. They tweeted this earlier. I saw it a little bit earlier. Backed, the new crypto exchange venture backed by Intercontinental Exchange, blah, 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 is apparently open to expanding beyond its planned Bitcoin futures trading product to include other digital currencies. And you can see the tweet. Question: we've been asked if we will add other digital currencies. Answer: we'll consider additional contracts as the landscape evolves and as we receive additional customer feedback about what they want and need. What's funny is TRX Tron is mentioned in this article. I guess they wrote a letter on why they would be the best choice for being added. And whether I agree or disagree doesn't matter. But one thing I will say, I'm confident. I'm fairly confident that Litecoin would be amongst the next couple added, if not the next one after Bitcoin. So time will tell, and we'll see if that plays out. But thought that was interesting. Wanted to add it. How are you making out in these markets? Tell me. I really want to know. I hope you're doing well out there. I hope you're not stressing too much in this bear market. Don't let it get to you. I'm not going to give financial advice, but I will give that advice. Don't let it get to you. Don't get emotional in these markets. Have a plan of attack. It will serve you well. I'm sure of it. I hope you're doing well. I hope you have a great weekend. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. I would love to have you as part of the channel. I will see you in the next video, and God bless.